Jabroni, Jabronixyz, oh, it doesn't matter, you spell jabroni.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of Two Jabronis with a Wrestling Podcast. BJ Cruz here with my tag team partner, the sole survivor, the best of the best, the incomparable Jeremy Loss. Jay, what is up, my dude?
Oh, I stood on the stairs the entire time, so now I am the sole survivor. I have done it. You know, we made it through.
So it's like Lana. You're just like Lana.
Can we? Okay. I know that we discussed before going on air what we were going to talk about, but I'm throwing a curveball to start off. Can we just talk about how dumb that was? Like, I'm fine with Lana, and we gotta like do the intros, but I'm gonna skip ahead right now. Like, I'm fine with Lana winning. I don't have a problem with that. I think it makes a lot of sense story wise for her to like persevere. But the way they got there really, really sucked.
It wasn't ideal. And again, I'm with you. I think the end result, if that was just kind of done in a regular fashion, like she got the pin, like I'm with that. I'm fine with that because especially the build up to this, the storyline of her just getting Samoan dropped through like 9 tables in 9 weeks, you know, it just makes sense. But the way it got there was less than ideal. I'll just
yeah,
put
and
it
it's
that
like
way.
a lot of that match. There was just like, I don't know what they were going for. Like they had Peyton pin Bailey and then lose to Natalia immediately afterwards. And then they have Bianca just go on like a run, basically getting her Keith Lee moment. And then it gets overshadowed by this ending. It didn't vibe with me. Like I said, I don't mind Lana winning. It's just the way they got there. Like if you're going to give Bianca her moment, give her moment earlier in the match.
Yeah.
And have her go out, you know?
It was a strange decision on an okay card, but we'll get to that. We got a lot to talk about in regards to Survivor Series, but first, don't forget to subscribe to the pod wherever you download your podcast. And if you're one of our fantastic Apple Podcast users, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And if you're feeling spicy, leave a review. And for our Spotify people, hit us with that follow and help us climb those Spotify charts.
Make sure that you also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's Two Jabronis with a Wrestling Podcast. Hit the red button that's somewhere around here. Hit the like, comment, do all that good stuff. Really help us out there. Ben spends a lot of time and effort on putting this up on YouTube. So really help us out there. Make sure to follow us on social at Two Jabronis Pod on Twitter and on Instagram. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Jeremy A. Loss, and you can follow Ben at Cruise Control. That's control with a K.
All right, everyone. It's Thanksgiving week, so hopefully you're listening to this as you travel safely to, or not travel. Maybe you're doing Thanksgiving at home because we're in the middle of a freaking pandemic, which would probably
I like that option better.
Which would probably be the safer thing to do. But in any case, first of all, happy Thanksgiving week. Thanks for listening as always. But it is now time to stick to wrestling. And for this week's Stick to Wrestling, we are talking Survivor Series, and we want to talk the 3 big takeaways from Survivor Series. We kind of teased it a little bit in the intro of the show there about what one of our takeaways was, which was the women's Survivor Series match was it had a less than stellar ending.
It was better than the men's one. I would give it that. The men's one was super weird because they did the sweep.
Yeah.
Which, what does that do for like SmackDown?
I mean, it was interesting just from a grander scale, right? Like Raw won both Survivor Series matches, but the SmackDown champs won the both main title matches, right? So on that, from that standpoint, you could say it's even, and neither show really got the edge. Again, both these matches really felt lackluster, especially given last year's matches. And again, I know it like we're beating a dead horse here and like comparing it to last year, but last year was so freaking good. Like with NXT's involvement, it just injected this new life into Survivor Series which desperately needed it because of the big 4 pay-per-views. This was the one that was probably floundering the most, right? Like WrestleMania will always hit, SummerSlam hits a really good amount of the time, and Royal Rumble always hits, right? Like no matter how jaded you are as a fan, those 3 pillars will always kind of leave you satisfied. Survivor Series has been struggling to keep up, right? On the power rankings, it's 4 out of the big 4. And then last year, they include NXT, and you're like, this is amazing. We're back. It's like when they reinvigorated the dunk contest, right? Like when that's what it felt like. And then all of a sudden, it was just kind of back to the status quo. And like elimination matches like this, they're not, especially when there's nothing at stake.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to do the brand thing too, like this is another thing that kept getting brought up last night. If you're going to do the brand versus brand, like best of the best, at least do the counter. Like they didn't even do the counter. Like they didn't even like try to make it a competition. So it's like, what are we like? It doesn't even matter anymore. So we're going into these matches for brand supremacy, and literally it doesn't matter in your storyline. So to me, what I got out of this is it felt like SmackDown, though they lost the 2 Survivor Series matches, it makes it feel like they are a little bit more set in their story direction.
Yeah,
because I felt like they're utilizing these things, and it's evident now with what's going on in Raw right now that they were using it as an opportunity to kind of create storylines. Like Raw, they needed everybody to win so that they can create a storyline with 5 guys rather than having a sole survivor where they can launch them off of that. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
with SmackDown, it feels like they're just much more set in stone as to what they're going to do. So they didn't need to branch out. They didn't need to create storylines coming out of this. And
also I felt like at least me personally, I was less into the Survivor Series matches because there was no invasion angle, right? Like, and look, it's all coming from the same building, and usually that's part of the surprise is because, you know, Raw and SmackDown kind of ran separately on the road, and even though they were kind of close together. Mm-hmm. Now, it was more infighting with all the teams as opposed to any type of, you know, rivalry with the opposing brand. And look, maybe this is the year where they take a break from that so that they can, you know, pull that back or go back to that once there's a crowd. And, you know, maybe that's what they were missing, but it just still felt lackluster in terms of the build to this because, again, there's a lot more infighting, which I don't know, I wasn't that into.
I mean, that was the whole storyline for both Survivor Series matches.
Right.
It was the infighting for Raw. So, I mean, it was, those matches were lackluster, but I want us to also focus on what was really positive on this show. And I think I can't like speak highly enough of that tag team match.
Oh my!
What the New Day and Street Profits did was easily the best tag match that the WWE has put on in at least 2-3 years.
I mean, those 4 dudes can go, and it was
just a clinic. They were like not like to the point where like you had FTR on Twitter like coming out and saying thank you. Like that was.
It was incredible.
Quality stuff. Things that you don't see from the WWE anymore when it comes to the tag team division. Like they just really like let them have, was it 15 minutes? 15,
yeah,
17
It was a good amount of time. And they did that thing where both teams made it feel like a big pay-per-view, right? Like the New Day comes down in their Gears of War, literally costumes, which were huge, which were monstrous. And at first when they cut to the Street Profits cutting their promo, I was like, man, it's kind of a long promo in Gorilla. What are they doing? And then you realize once the Street Profits came out, it probably was to give the New Day time to take off
get all that stuff,
all that gear. And it was just kind of funny to watch that. But I mean, I'm so glad that WWE didn't kind of give into temptation with the New Day and the Hurt Business and kind of have New Day drop the titles to the Hurt Business the Raw before, just to give you, you know, a more of a classic heel and face battle for this tag team match. They obviously went in with, you know, that mutual respect thing, and sometimes those matches can go sideways and there's less tension and therefore it's less entertaining. That was not the case. This was a freaking clinic in tag team wrestling. And look, whenever FTR kind of goes off on their diatribes about this, a part of me rolls my eyes and it's like, dude, we get it. Like, you love tag team wrestling. But there are times like this match where I'm like, I kind of see their point. Like, that was dope as hell. And you know, kudos to all 4 of those guys, Woods, Kofi, Tez and Dawkins, like they put on a friggin' show, and that blockbuster at the end from the Street Profits, that combo blockbuster, I guess you could call it, was awesome too. It was nice to see them end it with also a tag team finisher, and not just Tez going out there and hitting his incredible frog splash. So it was start to finish was just super well done.
Yeah, I thought everything about it was perfect. I saw this in a way as a passing of the torch.
Oh yeah,
because
totally.
I think I don't want to I envision that the clock is kind of running down on the New Day as a tag team, or at least as a tag team champion. I still envision them. Obviously, they are committed to Big E's singles run, but I still envision them giving Kofi another chance, another run here.
Sure.
They're definitely not on the young side. Like, they are on the older side of their wrestling careers, and obviously Xavier has a lot of things going on outside of wrestling. So I feel like, for me, this was a passing of the torch to, all right, this is Street Profits are the tag team to move us forward. They are the next wave. They are,
and rightfully so. I think that's a 100%. Great pick. Yeah,
100%. They are the team to kind of usher us into the next era. We are officially transitioning out of the Uso New Day era, because I think they're already. I mean, obviously the Usos. We see Jay already getting his singles push. Big E's getting his singles push. I think it's now to usher in the new era, and I think this was the time to really showcase, all right, the Street Profits can do it. They obviously have the mic skills. Their promos are incredible, so fun to watch. They have the presence. When the crowd comes back and they do the cups again, that's going to go crazy.
That's gonna hit.
And the in-ring work is just phenomenal. And I'm really happy to see that Vince is committed to making them the top tag team in the company. They've worked so hard. I mean, when they first came up, they weren't getting pushed all that much, and then they went off TV for the longest time as
weird.
Champions.
Yeah.
It was really weird. And now it's okay, you're almost guaranteed to see the Street Profits every time you turn on your TV. And I love that. So I think for me, this was the passing of the guard. This was it. It is the Street Profits show now when it comes to the tag team division. I know that the New Day kept their belts tonight against the Hurt Business, but I still think the clock is ticking on them as the champs, and I think it's time that they split up. I don't want to split them up just because I want to see people turn. I just think it's best for all of them. While they're still kind of hanging around, they still have their friendship, and they can still come back as a New Day now and again. Obviously you saw Big E come out with them last night, but I think it's time to get them back on their singles run. Let Kofi get a chance at it, maybe even the US belt, and let Big E go after that WWE title, or the Universal title, because I think it's definitely time for them to get their singles push.
So two things. One, I do want to shout out Dawkins specifically, because I think within the Street Profits, it's easy to get overshadowed by Montez, right? He's just, Tez is a friggin' superstar, and he's the future of the company. He's a future world champ. And he's just
the second coming of Booker T.
He's just that dude, right? He's just that dude. Last night, watching Dawkins, and I think this has to do with just from an interest and a passion level, because he's friends with the New Day. I just never seen this kind of fire in his eyes, and him being that jacked up to wrestle. He just kind of always,
hot tag was awesome.
Yeah, and just in general, he just kind of has this chill vibe about him, where you're yeah, when he's in a match, you get it. He's a big dude. He can kick your ass for sure. At the beginning of the match, when him and Woods are just squaring each other up, and he's just nodding his head, and he's fired up, and you're oh, that's crazy. I'm not used to seeing that, because in comparison to, and I guess, it's in comparison to Montez, Tez's energy is at 1,000 all the time. Mm-hmm. And then, which comparatively makes Dawkins look like he has this low energy. But man, shout out to him for that, just kind of stepping it up. And like you said, it took all four of them to make that match the banger that it was, right? And so kudos to all four of them, but specifically shout out to Dawkins. And then to your point about the New Day, I do agree it was a passing of the torch. I'm still very, very anti splitting them up even further. I think even now with them kind of being on different shows, I just think the New Day as a unit it's kind of what brought them to this point, right? Of like their careers, like they're
Right.
still, I think, I mean, I don't have I got to check the numbers on this, but they're still one of the biggest merch pushers in the company, right? And like they're just very kid friendly. They just the amount that they resonate with fans, just from like kids to adults, is pretty wide, right? Like it's kind of wild that they have that appeal, because sometimes we've seen this over and over again. John Cena, Roman Reigns, when kids love a group or a bunch of wrestlers, usually marks like you and I hate them, right? That's just like, it's just the balancing of the wrestling universe. But New Day, just from a wide spectrum, is just beloved. And that's why I don't think that they will ever fully split. I don't think there is ever going to be that Seth Rollins heel turn and to draw that fissure between the group, because I think they genuinely like each other. They're genuinely like really, really, really good friends, if not best friends. And two, like they have, again, the merch that they push, or that that they help WWE push, is insane. The amount that their podcast is being pushed, like as one of the official WWE podcasts. Obviously, Woods has Up, Up, Down, Down, which is doing bonkers numbers just from a viewing standpoint. I don't think they'll ever fully split unless there's like some personal strife.
I don't think they'll ever I agree. I don't think they'll ever do like the turn split. I don't think we're ever going to get like that backstabbing moment. I think what they'll do is they'll just do their separate things, and they'll still come back together on occasion. Like if they want to do like a segment on at WrestleMania or something, they'll come back together. But I think they'll go their separate ways, and it's crazy. I was completely like wrong about their ages. Like I thought they've been in the WWE forever. Like they've been around for a long time, and I thought they were on the older side. Kofi Kingston's 39, so he is kind of on the older side. But like Xavier and Big E are only 34, so they're in their prime. But like obviously Xavier's had a couple injuries, and he's obviously doing a lot of other things outside. So it's like, it's just interesting. I think that they're going to go their separate routes, but in a positive way. I think they're just going to be focused on what they can do individually, while still coming back together on special occasions.
I would love to something I would love to see is and it could just be a flash in the pan moment, but if E were Universal Champ and Kofi was WWE Champ, just so they have that moment together, right? Like where it's kind of like the Eddie Guerrero Chris Benoit moment at the end of WrestleMania 20, when they were both like, they're both really, really good friends, and they both were world champion at that time, right? And it's all the stuff about Chris Benoit aside, like that moment, their friendship was incredible. It was an incredible moment to witness and to see and to be a part of. So I hope they give that would be, I don't know if they'll ever do it, but I think that would be awesome I doubt they'll do it. I mean, it was like pulling teeth to give. It was like pulling teeth to get Kofi his title run. So I mean, it sounds great, and I don't think it'll ever happen, just because I just don't think Vince ever is committed to that level of buy-in. But another thing that was really good on that show, and I mean, it really wasn't a surprise to anybody, was Asuka versus Sasha Banks. I mean, those two just have incredible chemistry in the ring, from their segments that they had a few months ago to just the handful of matches that they've had throughout their run in WWE. I think I love the fact that they gave Sasha the win here. She needs this. She needs to continue to build this resume and continue to build this hot streak, so that when we get to Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, she can still have that moment. We'll see where they go with this, but Sasha is just on another level right now. I think this is the best I've seen her in her career. Yeah, she's which is crazy to think, right? Like she's just so it was almost to a point where she was underrated, right? When we would talk about who is good, or who should WWE be pushing, right? I think we almost took Sasha for granted at a certain level, and now she's just hit that. It's kind of when an NBA player like a Devin Booker makes the leap, right?
Yeah.
Like like a scorer like that who just kind of figures it out, and she's just figured it out. She knows how to do everything perfectly, and it's so incredible to watch, and just to have been part of this, especially like her journey with Bayley, like that's been a huge part of it, obviously, but her individually has been incredible to watch too, and like showing that she can stand on her own.
Coming
and
from
be
where
a
she
megastar
was,
and like
Yeah.
like not just the W, not like a lot of people have been women's champion, but she can be like a megastar, and that's awesome. And obviously it goes to like she was freaking in The Mandalorian, right? She was in one of the biggest shows that's going right now, which ironically she was discovered off of a Hot Ones episode and not her regular job. But I digress. She's on a heater right now.
It's crazy to see where she's at now from where she was at the end of WrestleMania 35 when this podcast started. She was on that massive break. Obviously she was not happy with the way things were going, and now she is kind of 1A or 1B next to Roman Reigns on SmackDown. Really carrying that brand and carrying that women's division. I think even at the beginning of this year, when we were talking about just like Hall of Fame, and I think I even said like I put Becky and I put Charlotte in the Hall of Fame, and I wasn't quite sure about Bayley and Sasha. I think it's not even a fucking conversation anymore. They're all in the Hall of Fame. They're all first
easily
ballot Hall of Famers.
Yeah,
I think what Bayley and Sasha have done this year is just like it surpasses what Becky did going into WrestleMania 35. And what Becky did going into WrestleMania 35 was fucking special.
It was special. No, that's the perfect word. It was special. And, in a couple of years when WWE makes documentaries about this pandemic and this era where they had to put on shows, Sasha and Bayley will probably be the back end, like the season finale, because they are the MVPs of this whole run. Right?
They carried it when Roman was gone.
Right. And they were literally on 3 shows. Right?
Yeah,
they were on all 3 shows.
I hope they got 3 paychecks because they fucking deserved it.
Yeah,
like they carried every single show.
There wasn't a point where like let's say they showed up on NXT, like you felt they had an off game. No, it was a 30-point, it was a triple double every night, and it was just wild to see. So kudos to them. It's going to be incredible to watch this Sasha run. I'm really really excited for it, and everything that's to come. Before we hit the break and we talk our favorite memories of the Deadman, excuse me, let's talk Roman Drew, which I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a really really good match. It picked up toward the end. Yep. Started off a little slow, which I was like I kind of expected that, given like it was just these two. They're actually 2 really big dudes, right? And Drew is actually, when they were doing that face to face thing, I was like, oh, he's bigger.
Is fucking massive,
he's
man. He
bigger
is a
than Roman Reigns,
human being,
and Roman Reigns is huge. So
yeah. I
I
expected it to start off slow. I mean, a lot of us tend to forget that like they had a match at WrestleMania 35 that wasn't very good.
It was okay, and they've had matches before against each other, like plenty of matches.
But like this one, I think this is also like part of Roman's gimmick. Like Roman is very methodical with his matches now. Like obviously he has a match with Jey Uso where he was just beating the shit out of him and talking to him the whole time. But like so much of his character is just being an asshole and being this smug guy that like you need a little bit of a slower pace to get that across. Like when he's talking shit to Samoa Joe mid-match, like that's when I think that's when it started to pick up for me. Like when he said like you can get this shit too, or you've had this, like you've got this too, or something like that. He's like, I was like, oh, okay. And then like everything just kind of picked up for me. And then they started going through the tables. They started getting speared through the wall. And I mean, they were kicking out of fucking everything.
Yeah. Good, some nice near falls. I appreciate
really good near falls.
I appreciate a good near fall. It was.
I mean, if there was a crowd, that fucking roof goes off on a couple of those.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like Shawn Michaels kicking out of Undertaker's tombstone at WrestleMania 25 type of near fall, but there were some really really good ones in there. So.
Yeah, and then for Roman to get that, I mean the shenanigans. I mean, you needed. I like the shenanigans that we had here.
It was it was necessary to protect both of them.
Protected both of them. It also like solidified this Roman heel character. Like he doesn't need to win with some chicken shit antics. But it's always good to have them. You know,
Right.
It's always good to sprinkle them in.
A nice little low blow every now and then is
Right.
it's a nice way to remind everyone I'm a piece of shit and you should be booing me.
Yeah,
But
and like the segments that they have backstage with him where he's just fucking shitting on Jey Uso and like telling Jimmy to go like to leave because he doesn't want to look at him, like this is just like printing monny.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
we were talking about Sasha earlier and how she's on a heater. Roman is absolutely on a heater. This
man, he's at the craps table making everybody money. He's on that kind of a heater.
Yeah. It's wild to watch him he's so locked in. You see it in his eyes every time he's on camera. Like he's so focused.
It's also like the teeth.
Oh yeah, the teeth
teeth
really
are
helps.
Just sending me right now.
It really helps that you're like, man, like I know he's a really good human being. I hate this character because he's such an asshole, but in the best way possible. Where you're like, yeah, he's doing a good job. He's doing
the only thing I'm
job.
not a huge fan of. And this is really like just super nitpicky. Is the gold glove? Not a fan of it.
A little Thanos-esque. He's trying to
like. I think he would look better. Like I know that it's just part of his ring gear, but like take the gloves off. Like hit people with bare fists. Like I think that'd look cool. I love the fact they got rid of the vest. I know that they were talking about changing his music. I want to see that. I want the new music. Shout out Keith Lee's new.
Keith Lee finally did it.
I mean, it's not his classic music, but it's still very good. It's like better than what he had. And I'm still kind of shocked that like Paul Heyman's a non-factor in this.
Well, no, it is interesting in that he's just playing a different role, right? Because he's
playing like a scared.
He's terrified, right?
Yeah.
He's terrified, and actually, the more I watch him, because they'll do these angles sometimes during Roman's matches where like they'll shoot the match, but Heyman will be in the background like reacting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's these small intricacies of him just like being worried, right? Like him being worried during these near falls where Drew almost had Roman was fantastic. It just added to it. And even the little things of, Heyman backstage watching Jay lose in the Survivor Series match where he's like, shit, now I got to tell Roman. And it's just a very different, because I don't know if he's the same Paul Heyman that he is with Brock. I think that's a disservice almost to Roman, right? In terms of like, because Brock and Paul, they have like this friendship and this camaraderie that is just they have a long history. Heyman has kind of hitched his wagon to Roman, but you don't really know why, and there's this fear. It might be almost like a fear thing, which I kind of vibe with. I'm kind of into it, and maybe they'll eventually reveal why he aligned himself with Roman. Maybe if and when Brock comes back, or there's some sort of explanation. But I think he's been doing really, really solid work, in that it's almost less is more in this case.
I think that's fair, and I think it's a nice change of pace from what you usually get with him with Brock, but also it's a change of pace from what you got with him when they try to tag him on to Cesaro and Curtis Axel,
right?
And even CM Punk, like he was Paul Heyman, like he was the Paul Heyman, and like now it's like it's totally different.
To that credit, those didn't work, right. So
except for CM Punk, I mean, they're born to work together,
right? So, and it's also it also speaks to Roman's ability to carry the mic when he needs to, right? Like is he The Rock? Is he even like a Montez Ford right now? No, but he doesn't need to. But he can, if he needs to cut a promo, if he needs to play his character, he can do it. Brock needs Paul Heyman. Otherwise, he's just kind of like a mime who wrestles. Right?
I wouldn't take that far. I think Brock is fairly good on his own. Like if they give him the chance to be like just be himself, he can come across as like well, obviously he comes across as an asshole, but he comes across as like a jock asshole where he just knows that he's bigger, stronger, and faster than you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it's just like when
I loved it when he would berate Paul Heyman. Like, do you remember when he had the briefcase and he didn't know he can cash it in? Like it took a year.
Yeah,
and he would slap him with a paper. Like I love that. Like he played the bully in a way. Like I like that. So I mean, I think
it was just a cadence thing with me. I think in terms of his delivery of promos, he would just speak too fast, like he felt nervous talking, and it made me feel uneasy. And like you know me, I'm not the biggest Brock guy out there, but look, do I buy that he's a badass? And then do I buy that he's an even more of a badass when Heyman is just cutting fire promos on his behalf? Absolutely. And I think just when he cut promos himself, it just kind of took me out of it a little bit because I'm like, you seem like you're nervous talking in front of all these people or in front of this camera. And I don't blame you. It's a shit ton of people who are watching. But Roman just never, even when Roman would do his white meat babyface thing, he just felt like he knew what he was doing at the very least, right? Like that, and maybe that's a little bit too low of a bar to expect, but that's how I feel and felt about it.
Right. I mean, I think what Roman is doing is easily the best work of his career. I think this is on par with the "It's my yard now" moment.
Yeah, which was a great moment.
That was a great moment, and I don't think they capitalized on it because that was the moment to turn him heel. You know, like that was the moment to say, like, all right, people fucking hate this guy. Let's capitalize on it. And they never really did that. And I think now they're taking that moment and just like running with it and running with that character. Now you're seeing like you're reaping the rewards of it. Like he's just so damn good in this role. He's playing like the disappointed father, you know?
Right. He's like, and Jay's just seeking his approval. It's very nice. I enjoy the back and forth there. Even at the end of the match when Jay's like, "Hey, I did good, right?" He's like looking at him like, "Just give me the sign of approval," and Roman finally gives him the hug.
And that moment when Jay finally like turns on him, they'll probably have to wait until the crowd comes back. But when he turns on him and eventually wins the title off of him, Jesus Christ, that's going to be a moment.
It's going to be a monster moment. It's going to be
that is going to make Jay's career. They don't even need to keep the belt on him for a long period of time.
It could be a one-nighter. It could be a one-night
Seriously,
thing.
But like they just need to have that moment where he overcomes this, and that's going to be a star-making moment. So
yeah, it'll be.
I mean, he's already kind of boosted his stock, but I think this is just going to take him to the next level. And again, this is like also showcasing the ability of Roman to uplift a fellow wrestler. Like he's being able to take Jey Uso and make him like a solid singles competitor. So
absolutely,
yeah. So all right. Before we get into our favorite Taker moments, which was part of our Lost episode that we're going to just kind of bring back, we do have some bills to pay. So let's take a moment to hear from our friends over at Indeed. 2020 has already reshaped how we work, and it's almost over. Businesses across the globe are challenged to be their most efficient, which means every hire is critical. Indeed is here to help. Indeed is the #1 job site in the world with more total visits than any other job site, according to Comscore. Indeed helps you find quality candidates quickly so you can focus on hiring the person you need to keep your business going. Unlike other sites, Indeed gives you full control and payment flexibility over your hiring. You only pay for what you need. You can pause your account at any time, and there are no long-term contracts. And now Indeed's new way of matching you with candidates instantly delivers a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job criteria that you can contact the moment you sponsor a job, making Indeed the only job site that you can move as fast as you do. 73% of online job seekers in the U.S. visiting Indeed each month, according to Comscore total visits. So it's clear Indeed can help you get the quality hire you need. That's why more than 3 million businesses worldwide use Indeed for hiring. Right now, Indeed is offering listeners a free $75 credit to boost your job post, which means more quality candidates will see it fast. Try Indeed out with a free $75 credit at Indeed.com/BlueWire. That is their best offer available anywhere. Go right now to Indeed.com/BlueWire. Offer valid through December 31st. Terms and conditions apply.
And before we get back to the show, let's take a moment to hear from a word from our friends over at Bet Online. Football is back and in full swing. You might not be at a game this year, but you can still be in on the action at Bet Online. Bet Online is going the extra mile to make sure you can get in on every possible chance to win this season. From game spreads and totals to team, player, and coaching props, Bet Online gives you more options to wager than anywhere else. You can get in on their season opening bonuses today and start off wagering on wins, division, and championship futures all day, every day. Head to BetOnline today and take advantage of all the great sign-up bonuses. Don't forget to use promo code BLUEWIRE at betonline.ag. That's BLUEWIRE, all one word. BetOnline, your online sports book experts. All right, we during one of the lost episodes that we recorded, I think it was like a week or two. Like 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago now. Yeah. We for some reason I forgot why we wanted to talk our favorite Taker moments, and it just applies better now. So maybe it was fate that stupid button wasn't there recording our show, because now we get to talk about the Undertaker, and obviously he bid farewell to the WWE Universe last night. Obviously, farewell is a loose term when talking about a wrestling retirement, but I think this is the end of. I think it's like
legit the end.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the end of like the Undertaker as a character. I think we're still gonna see Mark Calloway, right? Like he's still gonna be inducted to the Hall of Fame. He'll probably do a little pop in here and there. Like, look, Shawn Michaels retired, Ric Flair retired. There's people retire, but then they come back.
They're like really they're a part of the company. I think he's like out. Like I don't think he has like a role within the company.
No, he doesn't. It's not like that. But I think like if Vince called him and was like, "Hey, can you just come by?"
Make an appearance at WrestleMania.
Yeah, type of thing. Like he's loyal to Vince. I think that was evidently clear in the last ride doc. Like he rides or dies for Vince. Just like, and Vince made him, right? Vince made him the guy that he is. So before we get into like our favorite memories or favorite matches of Taker, I did watching the segment last night. I found a couple of things super funny. The first being, so they made all those people come down, like this plethora of legends, right? Just come down the ring to pay homage to the Undertaker, and then they all left before he came. It was very strange.
They all came down, and the only guy in ring gear was fucking Kane.
Kane was in full gear. And he was there for probably 2 seconds. That made me laugh so hard, because I was like, oh, maybe they'll have a moment where like they do, a little fist up together, like that'll be cool. And then when Taker came down, it was just Vince in the ring, and everyone else was gone. So Kane literally, he even had the wig on.
Yeah, that was odd, because they were all, I don't know if you noticed too, they were also like breaking kayfabe for like half of it, and then like trying to keep kayfabe for the other half. I was like, what are we doing here? Like they were like talking about the backstage like crew, and then like Kane came down and like, oh, his brother Kane. I'm like, we all know it's not his motherfucking brother. Yeah. Like, what are we doing
They're
here?
Not actually brothers.
Yeah, so that was weird. I did love seeing like the crew come down and like seeing everybody, like seeing the old timers. That was great. I agree. Like seeing them all disappear was weird. Also, Vince disappeared. Like,
yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it was all like that was all pre-taped, like it was just like, we're gonna do these segments and just splice them together. The 8-bit music that they had going on, because I think they had like some weird thing, like some weird tool that like helped them with the lightning or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. That was weird. I did like the steps, like the
elevator, the rising.
I thought
that was
dope. Like, man, why didn't they make that part of his gimmick for like the last like 6 years?
Right. That would have been
really cool.
That would have been awesome. Yeah, no, it was I mean, look, it was a proper send-off for the Undertaker. He really got to 30 years, man. And that's you can't do anything but hate. Or you can't hate.
What do you think of the Paul Bearer hologram?
I appreciated the him paying homage to Paul Bearer, right? Like, because obviously that's a big figure missing from that crew of people, and arguably he's probably one of the most important characters to help put Undertaker over, right? Both as his manager and then as someone who brought in Kane and turned on the Undertaker, all this stuff. So I appreciated it. I thought it was a nice touch, and I mean, it made sense. What's crazy too is like it kind of fits in with the character, right? It's like paying homage to someone from beyond the grave, or who's passed on. So I thought it was a nice touch, and I was with it.
I actually thought it was great. That's what like really got me. I was just like, oh man, that was the most emotional aspect to me. Like when you hear the oh yeah, and then you see him pop up, I was like, it kind of looks corny, but at the same time, like as a wrestling fan, as somebody that's been watching the Undertaker almost my entire life, like that moment really hit me. Everything else was just kind of like the same old things that you would get. Like I still don't really understand why they had everybody walk down and literally had nothing to do with it. And then for one, I don't know if anybody else felt this way. I was kind of hoping that they would give somebody the rub. And I was kind of hoping the Fiend would come out and he would give, like, I'm pretty sure if they pitched the idea to him, he would be like, yeah, 100% I'll give him the rub.
Yeah.
But like, and like really like the Fiend is the next Undertaker. That's what they're investing in him for, is like they want him to be that next like dark
mystical character. Yeah.
Right. So like it would have been great if like when he puts his hand up, you have the screeches, you see the Fiend and he hits him, and then that's how you go off the air, and that instantly makes the Fiend, like the Fiend is already like a star, but man, if he's the guy that sends the Undertaker out at farewell, like he's an instant villain. He is the character. He's the guy going forward.
It was interesting because one of my friends who watches wrestling like in passing, right? He like texted me yesterday morning and was like, "Oh, I heard it's Taker's last match," because he actually during Taker Roman at WrestleMania, he came by the house that day. He like watched the match, and that's when we all thought Taker was done. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "I thought Taker was done after that match." And we're like, "So did a lot of us." And then he was like, "Do you think he's gonna, or he's not wrestling, right? Or is he?" And I said, "Well, I assume there's probably going to be he's gonna talk, or it's just gonna be like he's gonna choke slam, tombstone someone, and we'll call it a night, right?" So I was a little surprised that he didn't engage in any sort of physical activity. That would have been epic if it was with the Fiend. That would have gone over so much. I would have popped for that.
I don't think anybody would have been disappointed in that if that's how you went off the air, where you had the Fiend come out. Even if he came out and he just took him, he didn't give him the mandible claw, didn't give him sister, like he didn't have to take any physicality. He literally just like grabbed him or something. I don't know, but like I think it would have been great to see the Fiend kind of brought in some way, shape, or form as a way to kind of give him the rub and bring him to the next level. So this send-off was really unique because obviously it's like a 30-year anniversary, but like it's unique in the sense of like when wrestlers are kind of done, they usually go out like on their back, and like this one was totally different. Like obviously he had his match at Boneyard, he had the Boneyard match, but like this was purely a ceremonial like send-off. Like Kurt Angle, if you remember WrestleMania 35, went out on his back with his match with Baron Corbin. Like we're so used to seeing wrestlers like when they're hanging up Ric Flair as well, like they have a match. Like that kind of temper the celebration for you. Like I know that we talked about how we wanted the Fiend to be a part of this, but like would it have been better to like I'm of the mind, like, I don't want to see him wrestle again, so I don't really need to see him go out on his back. But, like, do you think it would have made more sense for him to have a match where he lost and gave somebody the rub versus, like, a weird celebration?
I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like Taker kind of transcends the norms in wrestling, if that makes sense, right? Like, I was doing some reading about him last night after the show went off the air. It's wild to me he's only been champ 7 times, right? Like when you look at him and you look at like Randy Orton's been champion like 14, 15 times, right?
Right.
John Cena, same amount. Triple H kind of flirting with that. And like they're all great. Those are, Ric Flair. Obviously these are legendary names, great names. The Undertaker is at like half of those runs. And that stood out to me. So, but which is kind of goes back to my point about how he's absolutely on the Mount Rushmore, right? Like he just has to be because of how he elevated wrestling to the point where everyone bought in on the fact that he was a quote unquote dead man. We all bought in on this character despite knowing the fact he wasn't dead, right? So I feel like his exit and him kind of going out on his own terms and almost being celebrated, winning his last technical match, right? Like he won the Boneyard match, which again, he could have gone out. He literally could have been buried or something in that match. As a kind of, that could have been the ceremonial send off, the ceremonial goodbye. So I think this was also I think this was actually a solid way to do it. I also think probably in his discussions with Vince, he just seems to be a guy who's more about the business and paying respects to people who like kind of paved the way for you. I think he wanted to, more than anything, pay homage to Paul Bearer. And that's why I think it ultimately led to that moment with the hologram, him on his knee, doing his Undertaker thing. I think it was more about, for him, it might have been more about the Paul Bearer thing than
anything,
than his send-off. That's
yeah.
And I could be wrong. I'm sure he'll talk about it at some point and how he felt. You could see it hit him during his promo, right?
Vince was tearing up. Vince also dropped the WWF, which was crazy,
right? Which he's scrubbed that out of like all documentaries and repeats of Raw and stuff.
I would have loved to see him give the rub to somebody. I would imagine if they, like I said before, like if he was given the opportunity, if Vince is like, hey, we really want to make the Fiend tonight, like, and this is how you're gonna go out, like I think he would have been like, yeah, that's fine, like I'll do it.
No, totally.
Yeah, it's just it was a different way for them to send somebody off. And Taker, like you said, he was a unique character, and like he didn't need a belt to be over. Like I feel like some of these characters, like they need it. Like Randy Orton, at times, I mean, there's times where he's just phenomenal without a belt, but I think that at times, like he really needed a belt to kind of push his character over. I think it's similar. Like The Rock had 10 world title reigns, but like he didn't need those. Like he didn't need that many. He could have been a huge star with 4 or 5, maybe 6. Like I think those are rare occurrences where you can have a character that doesn't need a belt to be the A side.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why I think it's just wild to think about is like, again, he's been in the business 30 years. Right,
30 plus, because this is just 30 years since his debut.
30 years as Undertaker, right?
Yeah.
So, and to only have had the title like a third of that time, it's super interesting. But it also elevates your point on that he never really needed it. He was always enough. The streak, in of itself, was kind of like a title, right? It was something that was prestigious. It was something that people wanted to break, to the point where when Brock Lesnar broke that streak, I remember reading about it on ESPN. Right, it was crazy.
That was the biggest WrestleMania moment of the past 10 years?
Yeah, he's like hands down, and
it was that was the same night as the Daniel Bryan coronation, and like that should have been the moment, and like Brock just like it just overtook it.
It was wild. Like you and I worked at Bleacher Report, so like obviously we were covering wrestling, and it was just normal to us to just kind of see it on our website, but seeing it on like ESPN and CBS and Fox Sports, all these outlets were covering The Undertaker losing what was, on paper, just a one-on-one singles match. But obviously you add a streak to it. That adds obviously the sports aspect. And so I thought he had more runs. I honestly thought he had like at least double-figure title runs. Just off the top.
He had quite a few during the Attitude Era, but like some of them are just like you almost forget about him. But like one interesting kind of footnote of that streak ending was that, would you consider that to be like the first like memeable moment in wrestling?
That's a good point. I mean, maybe,
because the memes that came out of that are.
It was mostly the Undertaker guy, right? The guy who was just like
but
big
like there was
eyes.
still like just a ton of memes that came out of that.
And Taker laughing. Wasn't that the one where like he sits up and Brock's laughing at him?
That was
a separate match.
Their feud afterward, like that was the Hell in a Cell match. But like I feel like that WrestleMania 30 match was like the first wrestling match that at least I can remember where we just got like endless amount of memes that came out of it, and it really became like a part of like the social media like atmosphere. Obviously, social media was around long before that match, but
sure,
like, that's when it, for me, like social media and wrestling just really like fucking hit the gas, and like that's what took off. Because that WrestleMania is so like, we're gonna look back on that WrestleMania as like just one of the more iconic ones, because there was just so much that came out of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's crazy to think that was what, 6 years ago now, almost 7 years ago.
It was. And and it just feels like it was forever ago. Like it just feels like it was a long ass time ago, you know. And like we have the Daniel Bryan moment. That was Bray Wyatt's first WrestleMania. That was like I still believe he should have won. Should have beat John Cena at that WrestleMania. I mean, that WrestleMania is just iconic. I'm pretty sure that's the WrestleMania that you also get the Hogan. You get the Hogan Rock
Stone
Austin
Cold
moment.
Yeah,
and you have
it was huge.
Hogan saying it's the Silver Dome.
Yeah, and like,
I mean,
it took the cameraman correcting him.
Yeah, I mean that
elite.
That was an iconic WrestleMania. But like, I mean, to kind of bring this all back, I mean, Undertaker. I mean, we're never going to see somebody on that level again. We're never going to see a character that's that committed to, where like you have to spend night and day, even outside of work, committed to the fact that you are a certain character. Like you're never going to see Bray Wyatt walking around in a fucking Fiend mask. You know what I mean? Like he was so and I think that's why he was so happy about like being able to do the American Badass characters, because he was able to be himself
just for a little bit. Yeah,
rather than being the Deadman. Like I just feel like it's, for one, it's like a bygone era. Like we're never gonna have it. Like we're very rarely gonna have these kind of characters anymore, just because they, like, unless they're special, like the Fiend, they just don't fly very much. Like people like the realism, like they like having, just seeing people as themselves, you know. So for the way that they sent him off, it was fine. I would have loved to see him give the rub to somebody, but I'm fine with him not doing it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the end of an era, and just I think we got so used to being like, hey, the Undertaker is going to be at WrestleMania. That was just like a checkpoint on when you would see him for sure, and now that's just not the case. I mean, we'll see him, at a Hall of Fame induction hopefully soon, and that'll be that. And it's
I know it was weird
crazy
to think that he wasn't at WrestleMania 35, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And like it feels like now, especially since their match at WrestleMania 34. Like that, will he or will he not show up, or he's 100% showing up at WrestleMania? That role has been given to John Cena now.
Yeah. It
you know, it's like
ironic passing of the torch that we didn't know about.
Yeah, like that time. He has like WrestleMania 35. He has the Thugonomics thing. He obviously had the thing with Bray Wyatt last year. Like I think this year he'll probably show up because he has his show and his movie that he's gonna have to promote.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's weird to think about it. Like we have a pseudo passing of the torch at WrestleMania 34 with John Cena and Undertaker. So
that's crazy to think about. That's wild to think about now. Wow. All right.
I remember watching WrestleMania 34 at your house.
Yes, this was pre-podcast days.
Yeah.
That was such a long show.
My god! I was live tweeting it too. That was terrible.
And some of my friends came over because I was like, "Hey, we're doing like a watch party," and they don't know how long these shows are. So like they showed up at, like, I think the show started at 3:00 Pacific. Like the pre-show.
And it went till like 9.
Yeah, and they were at like 7:00. I saw someone being like, "What the hell is that?" Like, I need to go home. Like, yeah, you should definitely go home. All right, it's been it's the end of an era. You know, thank you to the Undertaker for entertaining us for 30 years, man. What a freaking legend. Shout out to him. And hope everyone enjoyed Survivor Series. Again, have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks as always. We're very thankful for you as a listener, as a watcher, however you are consuming this episode. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you download your podcast. And if you're one of our fantastic Apple Podcast users, please, please, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And if you're feeling spicy, leave a review. And our Spotify people, hit us with that follow so you can help us climb those Spotify charts.
And make sure that you subscribe and like our YouTube channel. Really help us out. Ben does a lot of hard work on trying to get this thing off the ground. So help us out. Subscribe, hit the red button, like, comment, do all that good stuff. Also, follow us on social at 2Jabronis Pod on Twitter and on Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeremy A. Lawson. You can follow Ben at Cruise Control. That's control with a K.
All right, everyone. Again, have a great holiday week, however that looks for you. And if you can, stay home. If you can't, wear a mask. And always and forever, Black Lives Matter. Happy Thanksgiving, 100%. Everyone.
Also, side note, little some fun information for all our listeners. I am going to be having another podcast coming out here very soon.
Oh, good tease.
So be on the lookout.
Good tease.
It's going to be a fun one.
I know about this, and I don't want to take credit for playing matchmaker, but I'm going to because you're gonna be on the show and you're gonna do great. All right, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. We will talk to you soon. All right. Peace.